What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another episode here on Finding Direction as we dive in for yet again another bonus episode where it's you and me having a conversation talking about how do we find your purpose and how do we help you live in that purpose more every single day of your life. And as we kick off this week's episode, I really want to let you know right off the bat just how deeply, deeply grateful I am for you. And I truly mean that when I say that. I am beyond grateful for every single time you choose to come back to the Finding Direction podcast and have a conversation with me. It means truly the world to me. I believe, and you've maybe heard this before in our conversations, and you'll hear it again, but I truly believe I was put on this planet as a vessel to help other people in this world. And by you coming to have another sit down with me, it's another way that I get to do that. And so I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for continuing to hang out with me. And I am so grateful for you. So this week, the episode that we're going to dive into is called 6 Reasons Why You Should Never Settle. And I'm sure you're going to feel this throughout the episode, but this is something that I am so ridiculously, incredibly passionate about this topic of never settling in your life. And I'm going to give you 6 reasons on this episode why I believe that you should not settle. And if you are not settling, maybe this will ramp things up for you a little bit. And if you've been settling in your life, and if you have been, I know you already know that I'm speaking to you right now. If you've been settling, this is going to be a little check-in. Maybe this is going to be um, maybe an uncomfortable conversation for some of you who feel like you've been settling. And maybe this is going to be for some of you a way that you can wake up and go, man, holy shit, I've been settling in my life and I need to stop settling. And so we're going to dive into all of this. There's so much goodness. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. So let's dive in. Now, the number one reason why you should never settle in your life, and this is simple and it's powerful and it's true, and you've probably heard this more than one time, but it's that the reality is that you only get one shot at this thing called life. You do not get a test life. You do not get a dress rehearsal. It's not like when you get to the end of your life, you go, man, all right, I'm ready for the real thing. It's like you are living in the only life. You are living in the only experience you will ever get on this planet, as far as we know. This is the only shot that you have. And so if that's not a reason not to settle, then I don't know what it is, right? If you've been going throughout your life and you've been going, man, I've been playing a little small. I've been, kind of just dilly dallying, going on autopilot through my life. Well, the reality is when you get to the end of your life, are you going to go, man, this was a brilliant, a beautiful, incredible life? Or are you going to get to the end of your life and say quite the opposite? I go, man, I didn't really ever do anything with this beautiful gift that I was given, which is this thing called my life, right? So you only get one shot, and you want to ask yourself, how do you want to spend that one shot that you get, right? And something I want you to think about as we talk about this first reason of you only get one shot at this thing called life is I want you to ask yourself, if you took away all the self-imposed limitations that you put on yourself, what would you actually want your life to look like? Right? Realize that the only limitations that you have are the ones that you put on yourself. Right? The only limitations that are in your life are the ones that you put on yourself. Right? There's someone else that got one shot at this thing called life and they lived it brilliantly. And why is that? Because maybe they didn't have some of those self limitations that you have. So ask yourself, if you didn't have self limitations, and maybe this is something you go journal on, you go put a prompt and say, if I didn't have all these limitations of what I think could and couldn't be real and could happen, what would I actually want my life to look like? And this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, is I think really at the essence of this thing called life, it's getting closer with ourself, building a stronger relationship with ourself, really being in tune with ourself and what we want. And then all life is from there is just continuing to sort of knock away the limitations that try to creep back in. Right? At the core, you probably really do have an idea of what you would want a brilliant life to look like. But a limitation of fear came in, and then a limitation of you're not good enough came in, and then a limitation of imposter syndrome came in. And eventually you bought into some of these lies that are really just that, they're lies. So maybe that's something you go journal on for just the first reason why you should never settle. Ask yourself, what would you really do with your life? What would you really want with your life if you didn't have all these self-imposed limitations that you put on yourself? Because if you bring those walls down, different opportunities will come in your life because you don't have the limitations on yourself. But if you have the limitations on yourself, an opportunity could come. But if you have the limitation, you're not going to see it. Right. So the number one reason you should never settle, and I know we went a little rabbit hole there, but is that you really do only get it one thing at this thing called life. You only get one shot at this thing called life. Now, the second reason you should never settle, and really this is so powerful, and I hope you hear this, is that in life, you can fail at the thing that you don't love. You can fail at the thing that you don't love. You can go after the job because it's practical, because it's realistic, because it's ideal, and you can get fired. You can follow the practical place, and it could still not work out. And so if you can fail at what you don't really even love, you might as well go after what you do love. Right? This is where I first heard this is a story by Jim Carrey. And if you've never heard this story, just Google Jim Carrey dad story and you'll see it on YouTube, right? That's where you can find it. But in a nutshell, the story that Jim Carrey shares is he shares that as he grew up, his dad was actually a pretty funny guy. But because his dad had, limitations that he put on himself, he decided to take the safe, practical route and get basically a safe, secure job. And so Jim watched his dad grow up. And as Jim was sort of in his teen ages, his dad got laid off. And as his dad got laid off, eventually that layoff turned into another negative and another negative. And then he went into that downward spiral that I think we're all guilty of sometimes going into. And the lesson that Jim got from that, and he shared, and that I want to share with you today, is he looked at his dad and he goes, man, if my dad failed at the thing he didn't even love, I should take my life and I should at least go for the thing that I do love, because the reality is I can fail at both. Right. So if you can fail what you don't love, you might as well go for something that you do love. Right. Another huge way that this showed up is we think about COVID. Right. COVID, there were literally millions of people in this world that followed the practical way, that followed the ideal way, that followed, a career that was going to create safety and stability for their family. And then COVID came around and millions of people got laid off, right? You look at what we're going at in the world right now with a potential recession coming, there's going to be a lot of people over the next, 6, 12, 18, 24 months who took the practical, the realistic route. And the recession, unfortunately for many people, is probably going to change their life in a great way. It could create layoffs. It could create people that this practical thing they thought was practical is no longer practical. And so the essence of what I'm getting at here is the reason you should never settle in your life is because failure is an inevitable part of life. Whether you go for a career, whether you go for something that's stable, whether you go for something that is wildly out of the box, failure is going to be a part of your life. And if it's going to be a part of your life, if you can fail at the stable thing, well, then you might as well go for the thing that's what you actually want in your life. All right. That's the second reason. Now, the third reason why you should never settle, and this one is going to be quick, but research has shown that you are one of 7 trillion sperms who made it to the egg. And yes, I'm talking about sperm, right? You are one of 7 trillion little sperms that, when we'll just call it mom and dad got excited, right? You were that sperm that made it to the egg, that got fertilized, that became a human being. And if you are 1 in 7 trillion sperms that was lucky enough to get a chance at this thing called life, isn't that, again, another damn good reason why you should not settle? Because you already overcame unsurmountable odds, right? If you overcame 1 in 7 trillion chances to be a human, I'm pretty sure you could overcome some of these other odds in your life. And so that's the third reason. The fourth reason that you should never settle. The fourth reason you should never settle. And for some of you, I know this is going to hit hard, but it's that in your life, you are either a warning or you are an example, right? Think about that. Your life is either a warning of what not to do, or your life is an example of what's really possible. And so if you're listening to this, I want you to think about who was someone in your life that you respect, who was someone in your life that you want the best for. Maybe you have, a children, maybe you have a nephew, a niece, maybe you have someone, or maybe you think about the kids that you'll have one day. And as you think about the children you have now, or the children you may have in one day, I want you to ask yourself, what would you want for your children? Would you want them to settle? Would you want them to live a mediocre life? Would you want them to, just kind of get by in this thing called life? Or would you be someone who really would want everything for your child? Would you go to your child and say, man, dream big, you can do anything? And would you believe that they could really create a life that they love? And if you say yes to that, which I hope you do, right? I hope that if you have children, or if you have children one day, you would want to encourage them with that message. You would want to tell your child, don't settle. Do something you love. Live a life that inspires you. And if you would say that to your children, the reality is that you can't say that if you don't live it. Think about that. You can't say live a life and never settle if you're settling in your own life. And so if you get older, maybe, eventually your kid grows up and they look you in the eyes and they go, Mom, Dad, you always told me, never to settle. You always told me anything was possible. You always told me to, really live a life that I love. But why don't you do that, Mom and Dad? Why did you settle? Right? They stoned through studies. Again, they did a study at Stanford University that 50% of your patterns are formed by 95% of your patterns / habits are formed by the time you're 18 years old. So the reality is that as your life is an example and a warning, and as you have children now or have children one day, they are ultimately going to pick up those patterns from you. Right? If you settle, you better believe your kids are going to settle because they watched you settle your entire life. So ask yourself, is your life an example or is your life a warning? And if your life is a warning, right now is the time to go, you know what? I need to kick things up in my life. I need to not settle, and I need to become an example of what's possible rather than a warning of what you should not do in your life. All right. So the fourth reason why you should never settle is, we'll just break it down simple. We'll say, do it for your kids. Do it for your children that you have now. Do it for your children you have in one day eventually. But do it so you can look your child in the eye one day and say, man, I didn't settle, so you should never settle too. Do it so that one day when your kids look in your eyes, they could go, Mom, Dad, I'm going for my dreams. I'm going for a life that I love because I watched you do the same. That is a powerful reason to never settle, if you ask me. Now, the fifth reason that you should never settle in your life is that settling impacts every area of your life. I want you to think about this for a second. If you decide to settle in your career, to settle in your profession, isn't it true that if you settle in your profession, do you get home and maybe you're a little tired because you feel drained from your job? And if that's the reality, well, then do you go exercise the way you know you probably should if you want to have a healthy body? And the answer, we both know it, is yeah, there's probably some days you skip out. There's some days where you probably don't do the exercise and nurture your body in the way that you know you need to really perform at a high level in your life. And then if you get home from your career that you don't like because you settled, is it possible that maybe you don't have as much energy? And then when you're in a relationship, maybe you don't make the extra effort to show your significant other that you really care for them. Maybe you don't make the extra effort to show your partner how much they truly mean to you. And does that then impact your relationship? Absolutely. Right? If you're not in a relationship and you're settling at your career and you get home after your career, after the day in work, and are you maybe so depleted that you go, man, I'm not even going to try to meet somebody. I'm not even going to try to date, to, meet the one in my life because you settled in your career, right? Understand that when you settle in one area of your life, it impacts every other area of your life. It's not a choice, right? It's the domino effect. Every area is always bleeding into other areas of our life, right? Our health affects our work affects income affects relationship affects kids affect other things, right? Everything in your life affects everything in your life. So a question I want you to begin to ask yourself is, what does it cost you in your life to settle? What has it cost you in your life to have been settling in your life over the last month, over the last year, over the last 3 years? What else has it cost you in your life? And I want you to really ask yourself, maybe journal on that one again. Ponder that question. What has it cost me in my life because I've been settling? Has it cost you your health? Has it cost you some relationships? Has it cost you finances? Has it cost you an impact on other areas of your life? What does settling really cost you? And once you begin to get clear and see all the different areas of your life that it's affecting, all the different things that it's costing you in your life to settle, I think, and I know that is going to be a powerful reason for you to go, I can't settle. I can't settle in my career. I can't settle in my job, in my mission, because it's impacting my health, my relationship, my friends, my significant other, my everything. And that is an incredible reason why you should not settle. And yes, it's going to be hard sometimes, right? Yes, it's going to require hard work. But something you want to think about is, in life, things are going to be hard. Someone once told me this. They said, you either do what's hard now and life's easier later, or you do what's easier now and life is hard later. So are you doing the hard things right now, which is what's sometimes required to not settle? Or are you doing the easy things, which are required to settle, which is going to create a difficult future for you later in your life? Right? Life's going to be hard either way, my friend. It's just a matter of picking your heart. Do you want to pick the heart of saying, I'm not going to settle, and it's going to take work to figure out what I want to do, and it's going to take work to get a career that I love, and it's going to take work to, really build a life that I love? And do I want to pick the heart of creating a life that I love and really learning about myself, creating self-awareness, and taking the action required to create that life? Do I want to pick that heart, or do I want to pick the heart of saying, you know what, I'm going to settle. I'm just going to kind of ponder through this thing called life. I'm just going to kind of, meander through this thing called life. And then later on, my life's going to be hard from the repercussions of not taking care of my health, from the repercussions of not nurturing my relationship, from the repercussions of doing something that I didn't actually like for 10, 15, 20 years. What's the hard that you want to pick? Because it's going to be hard either way. All right. Now, finally, the sixth reason you should never settle is actually about toothpaste. And I want to share a story with you about toothpaste. This is one of my favorite stories that I've ever heard as I went through my own personal development journey and listened to many different mentors and people in life. And the story of toothpaste is this. I want you to imagine for a second a tube of toothpaste, right? And one tube of toothpaste, right? You kind of squeeze all the toothpaste out that you can with your hands. You push some of the things out, and eventually you get to the end of the tube of toothpaste. And when you cut it open, oftentimes you'll find that there's leftover toothpaste in there. Maybe it was in some of the nooks, some of the crannies. Maybe there were some parts of the tube of toothpaste you couldn't quite push everything out. And then think of another tube of toothpaste. And in this second tube of toothpaste, maybe you've seen this before, maybe not, but there's actually an invention that was created that you put on the end of a tube of toothpaste. It allows you to push this invention through the tube of toothpaste so that when you cut open the tube of toothpaste, there's actually nothing left on the inside. And what you want to realize from this story is that life in itself, your life, is truly like a tube of toothpaste. And the fact that some people get to the end of their life, they cut open that first tube of toothpaste and they realize, man, there was so much more potential in my life. There were so many more experiences that I could have had. There was so much more life that I could have lived. There's so much more that I could have done in my life. There's so much more toothpaste, AKA potential, that I had in my life that I never really dug into, that I never really got out because I settled. Are you going to sit at the end of your deathbed one day and go, man, I had so much toothpaste left. I had so much potential left. Or are you going to be the type of person that has that invention that when you cut open tube number 2 of toothpaste, you go, man, I got everything out of my life. Yeah, there were some hard parts of my life. Yeah, there were some times where, man, I went through the trials and the tribulations. But because I did not settle, I got to the end of my life. I got to my deathbed. And I could look myself in the mirror and say, I did everything possible to create a life that I truly loved. And if you look at your life right now and ask yourself, am I living a life that's going to allow me to get to the end of my life and have gobs of toothpaste left over? Or am I living a life where I'm going to get to the end? I'm going to cut open that tube of toothpaste and I'm going to realize that I got everything I possibly could out of that tube of toothpaste. And that is the 6th reason, my friend, that you should never settle. We as humans have unlimited amount of potential in us. There's no one that ever came in your life when you were born. Let's say you were a baby, right? You came into the world and a doctor didn't pick you up and say, let me listen to this one. Let me look at this one. Okay, you know what? This baby is going to have 60% of potential. And then another baby was born and the doctor looked at the baby and go, oh my God, this baby's going to have 100% of potential. And another baby came out and the doc goes, ooh, this baby's only going to get 20% of the potential out. Nobody ever did that. That never ever happened. Nobody ever came into your life, into your soul and your spirit, your existence, and said, I'm only going to allow you to get 20 to 50% of your potential out of your life. Nobody ever did that. Nobody ever put a cap on you and what you can truly create in your life. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. The only limitations are the one that you put on yourself. So if you have unlimited amounts of potential that you can tap into in your life, why would you not access that? Yes, sometimes it's going to be scary. Yes, sometimes there's going to be fear. Yes, sometimes it's going to go, well, this doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense. And I have this thing that I got to pay the bills and this and that and the other. And I got kids and I got to feed myself and I got to pay rent. And I got to, yeah, all those things are true. But all those things as well, my friends, can just as much be an excuse that you're making for yourself to allow yourself to tell yourself that it's okay to settle. There's other people that have rent. There's other people that have bills. There's other people that have to eat, but they did not settle in their life, and therefore they created a greater life for themselves. So as we begin to wrap up the episode for today, I really want you to begin to ask yourself and check in. Have you been settling in your life lately? And do you need to step it up? Have you been allowing yourself to give yourself a pass? Have you been allowing yourself to kind of drag your feet, go on autopilot, and kind of just meander through this thing called life? Or have you been not settling? And if you have been dragging your feet, if you've been settling, I hope you get some reasons today that allow you to go, I am not going to settle anymore in my life because 1, you deserve more. And 2, you are an unbelievable spirit. You're an unbelievable human. You're an unbelievable being on this planet that has unlimited potential. And you should never forget that and never allow yourself to settle. All right. The 6 reasons, one more time, is number 1, you only get one shot at this thing called life. It's not a dress rehearsal. Number 2 is you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well go for what you do want. Number 3 is you're one of 7 trillion sperms that made it to become a human being. Number 4 is your life is either an example or a warning. Number 5 is settling impacts every other area of your life. And finally, number 6 is the reason you should never settle is because you have unlimited potential and you want to get to the end of your deathbed and say to yourself, I got everything out, rather than looking at yourself in the mirror in your deathbed going, man, I had so much more left to give. So I hope you take some of these reasons from today. I hope you take a real check-in on your life. And I hope you leave this conversation going, Stu, maybe I've been settling, but today things are going to change. Today, I'm going to step up. I'm going to set a higher standard for my life. I'm no longer going to settle, and I'm going to go after what I truly want in my life. I would encourage you, if you're settling, to go listen to this episode twice, 3 times, listen to it over and over and over again, go through some of the journal prompts that we spoke about, and use those things to power and fuel you as you go into the next area of your life. All right, my friend, it's been an honor to hang out with you over the last little bit. Go out there, never settle. Remember, you are an unbelievable, outstanding, ridiculously incredible human beings. And if you allow yourself to not settle, if you allow yourself to tap into the full potential that you have within yourself, there are some unbelievable things you can create in your life. If you have not yet, make sure you subscribe, give us a like, give us a review if you're enjoying us. Let us know on iTunes what's something you enjoy from the show, what's something you want more of. And I would be extremely grateful to hear that from you and use it to make this show better for you every single week. And matter of fact, if you don't want to go anywhere, I have another episode coming up right after this with myself and a guest as we dive into their life, how they found purpose, how they maximize living their purpose. So don't feel like you need to go anywhere. And if you want to stick around, the next episode will be up in just a second.